Reporter catches Carney off guard. Bloc Québécois surges back to reclaim Quebec. As the Canadian election approaches its peak, tensions rise with Mark Carney, the newly appointed leader of the Liberal Party and Prime Minister. His campaign is under increasing scrutiny, especially after a recent misstep during a press conference where he struggled to answer a question about past political admiration. This stumble has raised doubts about Carney's political credibility and his ties to powerful business elites, including a controversial $1.1 billion bailout involving the Kushner family. Critics question whether Carney prioritizes corporate interests over the needs of everyday Canadians, undermining his ability to connect with voters. Carney's political trajectory has been marred by accusations of being out of touch with ordinary Canadians, especially at a time when voters are growing wary of the influence of big corporations and foreign investors. These concerns have become a significant threat to his campaign, with accusations that Carney represents the entrenched power dynamics that many Canadians seek to challenge. His credibility continues to erode, and this has resulted in mounting opposition from both rival parties and within his own ranks. Meanwhile, Yves-François Blanchet, leader of the Bloc Québécois, has been seizing the opportunity to critique Carney's leadership. Blanchet has emphasized Quebec's sovereignty, calling Canada an artificial country, and advocating for a government that represents Quebec's unique identity. His remarks about Quebec being part of a foreign parliament have resonated deeply with many Quebecers, who feel their province's interests are often sidelined in favor of national priorities. This rhetoric has contributed to a growing surge in support for the Bloc, narrowing the gap between Carney's Liberals and Blanchet's party. Blanchet's appeal is particularly strong in Quebec, where his commitment to defending the province's culture and autonomy has positioned the Bloc as the main political force for those who feel their provincial interests are being overlooked by Ottawa. His calls for Quebec to regain control over crucial areas like immigration and economic policy have been embraced by voters concerned about the federal government's interference in provincial matters. With growing support in Quebec, Blanchet has firmly positioned the Bloc as the defender of Quebec's rights and needs. At the same time, Alberta's role within Canada has become increasingly contentious. A provocative column in the Toronto Star suggested Canada could thrive without Alberta, which ignited outrage among Albertans and further strengthened support for Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party. Poilievre has capitalized on this sentiment by positioning himself as a champion of Western interests, gaining significant traction among voters frustrated by federal policies that they feel have sidelined Alberta's economic and cultural priorities. Poilievre's campaign has been fueled by his endorsement from influential groups like the Steelworkers Union, which has added credibility to his platform, emphasizing economic reform and inflation control. His rallies, especially in Alberta, have energized crowds, showcasing his ability to connect with voters who feel their regional interests have been neglected. Poilievre's focus on economic decentralization and a more accountable government resonates strongly with voters in the West, particularly in Alberta, where dissatisfaction with Ottawa runs deep. Poilievre's recent rally in Vancouver outshone Carney's gathering in Toronto, despite the latter's larger population. This contrast highlights a growing disconnect between Carney's campaign and the excitement that Poilievre's rallies are generating. While Poilievre has energized crowds and drawn strong enthusiasm from his supporters, Carney's attempts to rally Canadians have struggled to match that level of excitement. Carney, a former Bank of Canada governor, has attempted to project a polished, composed image, but his approach has not translated into the kind of grassroots enthusiasm that Poilievre has cultivated. As the election progresses, the differences in leadership styles between Carney and Poilievre become more apparent. Carney's attempts to connect emotionally with voters, including moments where he tries to mimic Poilievre's heartfelt gestures, have been criticized as insincere. Observers note that Carney's carefully crafted persona, honed through years in the upper echelons of global finance, hasn't resonated with Canadians the way Poilievre's direct, straightforward rhetoric has. Poilievre has been able to articulate a compelling vision for Canada, focusing on critical issues such as economic stability, inflation, and a more decentralized government. His message of accountability and a return to regional empowerment has struck a powerful chord with voters across the country. In contrast, Carney's ties to the business elite and his inability to relate to the struggles of everyday Canadians have overshadowed his attempts at connecting with voters. His message has become increasingly difficult to sell, especially as Poilievre's focus on the average Canadian voter and his stance on economic reform continue to gain traction. Poilievre's calls for fiscal discipline, smaller government, and a more empowered provincial system align with voters' desires for change after years of perceived liberal mismanagement. As the election nears, the stakes for Carney and Poilievre couldn't be higher. Carney faces mounting pressure from the Bloc Québécois and Poilievre's Conservatives, who are gaining ground in key regions. The outcome of the election will hinge on crucial issues such as provincial sovereignty, economic reform, and the candidate's ability to connect with constituents in a meaningful way. With Blanchet gaining ground in Quebec and Poilievre asserting a strong presence in Alberta, the political landscape is shifting rapidly. In these final days of the campaign, voter engagement will be critical. Both Carney and Poilievre must navigate these challenges with careful strategy and messaging. The next few days will determine whether Carney can regain his footing and convince Canadians he is the leader they need, or whether Poilievre's momentum will carry him to victory. Meanwhile, Blanchet's surge in Quebec presents a new challenge for Carney, particularly as Quebec voters express greater dissatisfaction with the current political order. The next developments will undoubtedly play a decisive role in shaping Canada's political future. This election could be a pivotal moment in the country's history as the electorate grapples with pressing issues such as national unity, economic stability, and provincial autonomy. Whether Carney can overcome these challenges or whether Poilievre and Blanchet will bring about significant political change in Canada remains to be seen. As the election draws near, the future direction of the country is on the line, with Canadians preparing to make critical decisions that will reshape their political landscape for years to come.